art project, which is making a model of the parts of a pumpkin. And here it is, the star of the season, the old pumpkin. We eat it in pumpkin pie. We carve them to maybe make cool faces like jack-o'-lanterns, and we get to learn about all the different parts and how it's made up. That's a whole thing that's made up of different parts. So let's jump in and just make sure that you have this handy. It should be in your bag. It's your parts of a pumpkin set. So go get that. And let's talk a little bit about the real pumpkin and then how you're going to make a paper model of a pumpkin. All right, so here is the real life pumpkin. You can grow them in a garden, you can buy them at a store, and those ones come from a garden or a farm as well. And let's see all the different parts that you can notice on the outside of the pumpkin. So here, right here on the top, that's the stem. And the stem, you can see, was cut from and connected to the rest of the vine because pumpkins grow from the ground on a vine. Yeah. And so here's this outside, this orange part is called the skin. That's the skin. And this part is pretty cool. This is actually the part because a pumpkin this is actually the fruits of a pumpkin plant, and it became that after the flower dried up. So it's pretty cool to see that part. We're going to take a cross section. So I'm going to cut this pumpkin in half, and let's take a look at what it looks like inside. So I used a cutting board and a big knife, and I cut this pumpkin. So here's the whole pumpkin, and I cut a slice. So check it out inside. Isn't that cool? It's amazing. Look at that. Do you know that all of those seeds, each one of those, can not just make another pumpkin, but a whole other pumpkin plant? It's incredible, right? All right, well, let's check it out. Let's look at the cross section, just like this. And let's see all the parts inside of the pumpkin, what we're gonna call it, right? So here's our stem. We can still a little bit see the skin on the very edge. And this part, it's called the meat of the pumpkin. You might call it different things, or the flesh. Kind of funny because a pumpkin is a vegetable, right? Or a fruit. It's not it's not animal, but we call this the meat because this is what we would use to eat. If you take this pumpkin and you scrape out the inside, maybe put a little oil on it and put it on a baking sheet, you bake it and it gets super soft. And you take the skin off, take all that skin off, it gets dark. And then this is the part that you then mush up, and you can make pumpkin bread, or you can make pumpkin pie, all kinds of delicious things. Yeah. So we've got the stem, we've got the skin, we've got the meat, and then we've got this stuff, the stringy stuff, we call the pulp, right? And then, of course, it rhymes with beads. Yep, it's seeds. So those are all the parts of the actual pumpkin. All right, so to make your model of a pumpkin using paper and other materials, you're going to take this all out and let's see what you need, what we've given you, and what else you need to add in. So of course you have the outline of the pumpkin, you have your label, parts of a pumpkin, and then you have this other outlined piece. There is an envelope prepared with materials for you. What you need to provide are some scissors to cut it out, and some sort of a black marker. You could use pencil if you need to. I think a Sharpie or black marker is going to be helpful. Definitely need white glue. And for some of these labels that we're going to add on at the end, you might need to get an extra little piece of paper, and we forgot to include that. So you want to grab some extra paper that you can use for your labels. And one more thing is you need a green pen. The first thing you're going to do is just color in the stem. You can color it in green or brown, really. And when you color green on the orange, it looks kind of brownish. It doesn't have to be perfect because you're going to cut it out anyway. So kind of go all the way to there, color in that stem. There you go, easy peasy. Now you're going to cut out your whole pumpkin outline and also this part right here. Next, you're going to use a pencil or your Sharpie to go ahead and write your name right here on your label. And then you're going to glue some pieces together. This represents the open part of the pumpkin, so that's going to get glued right on here. So let's go ahead and do that by flipping it over, putting one line of glue right around the outside. As long as it's white glue, one line should really do it. And then what you want to do is flip it over and put it right here. That represents your open part of your pumpkin. And then you have a choice. If you have another big piece of paper that you want to put this whole thing on, you can do that. And then glue this paper, this label right here like that. But I don't have that, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a little bit of white glue right here. Boop. Boop. You could also use glue stick. And then you can take your pumpkin and just put it right on top so you can see your label. Be all set for you. Okay, you're about halfway there. Okay, now open up your envelope and let's dump out the contents and see what's inside. There we go. You've got a couple pieces of orange yarn and, of course, pumpkin seeds. So this orange yarn is what we're going to focus on first. And the orange yarn is going to represent all of that pulp in this open cavity. To make it, what you need to do is you need to pull apart the yarn like this. So you're going to take this yarn and you're going to open it up kind of like this and sort of unravel it. You'll notice that each piece of yarn actually has a lot of other pieces to it. I guess it looks like it's like twisted. Maybe each one has 3. But then you could just leave it like that if you want. And if you want to open it up even more, just sort of pull it apart like this. Make it look even more pulp-like. There you go. Keep going until you're all pulpy. All right, now I'm ready to glue on all of my pretend pulp and my actual seeds. To do that, I think the easiest way is just to put a whole bunch of glue in here in the middle. That's why we're going to have to wait for this to dry before we do our labels. All right, lots and lots of glue. And then we get ready to get messy. You take this yarn, and this is our model, right, for our model for our pumpkin. It's not a real pumpkin. We just call it a model because it's representing the pumpkin. Put all this pulp on there, which is really yarn, but we're pretending it's pulp, our pretend pulp. And the more you open it up, the more pulp-like it looks. There it goes. And then keep going until it's all pulpy. All right. So I had to wash my hands for this next part because I got so gluey putting all of this yarn down as my pretend pulp. And now I'm going to go ahead and do my last part, which is the seeds. So I'm going to count how many I have so I know how much glue to put down. Let's see. Okay, I've got 7. So I'm going to put down 7 dots of glue. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now, if you happen to have more pumpkin seeds at home, you could use those. If you already had so much glue on here before that you don't need to add any extra glue, no problem. You just glue on all of your parts, and now you've got all the parts of a pumpkin. Now, obviously, this isn't a real pumpkin. This is a model of a pumpkin. And let's look again at the actual pumpkin, right? So there's a real pumpkin, and a model is something that scientists use and artists use to represent a real thing. All this is missing now is our labels, and we have to wait for this glue to dry so we don't mess up our Sharpie when we're going ahead to put on our labels. The easiest way to do our labels is to write them on little pieces of white paper. So I'm going to show you this way and then the other way also. Here are the 5 labels you need to have. Stem, skin, meat, pulp, and seed. And you're going to glue them down where they go on the model of a pumpkin. So stem, skin, which points to the very outside. That's why I put that arrow there. Meat, which is just right here on the inside. Pulp, right here in the middle of a pulpy bit. And seed, right there on a seed. If it didn't work for you to use these labels, no problem. You can write directly on your model of the pumpkin, just like this. The meat goes right here. And then the skin, show those arrows to the outside. the stem right there. And then if you can write really small, you can write seed right on the seed, or you can write it with an arrow and then use an arrow to show the pulp, because I think it'd be pretty hard to draw on that yarn. That's it. Great job making your model of the parts of a pumpkin to represent the parts of a real pumpkin.